The accident can now be explained. The cosmonaut's MiG-15 would have been destabilized by the Sukhoi 15's reactors, and in the thick cloud, the bigger plane would not even have realized it. The result for the older aircraft was a nosedive. In theory, nothing dramatic, as both Gagarin and Seryogin probably thought they had a good kilometer before hitting the ground to straighten out and climb. Except that the MiG's instruments were not always totally reliable, particularly the altimeter, which required a few seconds to adjust in the case of a sudden descent. This deficiency was all the more serious as the control tower's altitude radar was not working that day. When Gagarin hit the ground, he had almost controlled his aircraft. He would have needed just 2 more seconds. Leonov, who was training cosmonauts for parachute jumps that day, a few kilometers from the accident, clearly remembers 2 detonation sounds: the explosion of Gagarin's plane and the noise of a plane breaking the sound barrier. He testified to this effect in writing for the Inquiry Commission's official reports.
Almost 20 years later, I consulted this document, and I didn't recognize it. I know my own writing. My report was rewritten. The most essential point was changed. Between the 2 detonations, I had indicated 1.5 to 2 seconds. But the graphics were changed to show a time lapse of between 15 and 20 seconds, which means that the 2 planes would have been 70 kilometers apart. And so the contact was impossible. So I'm asking you, who could have made the corrections? People hoping that there wouldn't be any scandal and that there wouldn't be a guilty party.
A sequence of barely believable errors and 17 years of blackout from the Kremlin. Iuri Gagarin, who embodied the best of what the Soviet Union could produce, would finally fall victim to its deficiencies. In the USSR at the time, one Russian joke said that planes could never crash. It would be counter-revolutionary.
You know, there's a wonderful poem by Felix Tchev, The Coffins. It says, "At all times and everywhere in Russia are disorder and negligence that have killed us so many times." And he was no doubt right. It was because the flight was organized with such a disregard for the standards and rules of security that the tragedy occurred.
With Gagarin dead, the Soviet space program lost momentum, leaving the United States free to dominate space. On July 21st, 1969, it was an American voice that declared, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." Iuri Gagarin would not live to accomplish his dream. Neither would he see Red Army tanks rolling into Prague a few months after his death. Times were changing again, and he perhaps no longer had his place. But his smile lives on, fixed on photos with yesterday's colors, which even today hold pride of place in many homes, between 2 saintly icons. A strange destiny for a man reputed to have said, "God doesn't exist. I didn't see him up there."